Welcome back, coaches. This is the Football Coaching Podcast. I'm Daniel Chamberlain, here with Joe Daniel, as always.
What's up, Coach?
I'm exhausted, honestly. Joe, we got up very early this morning to go get out on the lake to get skunked by a bunch of bass again.
Nice.
So, listen, we talk a lot on here about being driven and picking up new hobbies, and this is the most failure I've ever seen in anything in my life. When I just watched those YouTube guys, and I was like, oh, I can do that. My gene was wrong for the first time ever. I can't do that. It's so hard. I don't know. I think it's a pay-to-play system. I think Garmin cornered the market, and you have to have live scope to catch bass. I think that's what it is.
I ran over last night to the pond at the University of Richmond at about 8 o'clock after my son was upstairs. My wife was reading a book. I said, "Good night, buddy." Because he always knows that I'm going fishing without him. But the only way to catch fish is without him. Anybody who's fishing with a 3-year-old. But I went over last night, and I was over 45 minutes. And I caught a 4-pound bass right off the bank. And then here's the bad thing. The thing I'm worried about right now is I've been hooking up the last few days. Everything changed. The heat. It's 97 degrees today. So that's why I'm there going at 8 o'clock at night the last couple of nights. I've tried to go like earlier, and it's just awful. But 8 o'clock, I've been catching bass every night about 8 o'clock. But there's this one spot at the U of R pond where it goes, runs off under their cafeteria or whatever it is. They're like, it's like a big, really nice. This is a beautiful campus, by the way. If you've never seen it, U of R campus is absolutely beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful campuses in the country, and it's got a nice little lake on it, which has some good fish in it. But I've been fishing parts of it that I'd never fished before because I used to be on the other end, which is very shallow, and now that it's so hot, they've kind of moved. And so I'm down here, and there's this other side of the walkway that goes across the lake, and I have hooked a bass there every night for the last. Well, I'm sorry, I'm choking up. Every night for the last, choking up about these fish, man. Hooked the bass there every night for the last 3 nights that I've gone, which wasn't the last 3 nights because Monday and Tuesday I was in Chicago. So Sunday night and then Wednesday and Thursday night. The problem is I recently got a new rod and almost immediately broke the rod tip. Okay. Just doing dumb stuff, bank fishing, and like it's different than being in a boat. Like you're doing awkward stuff, trying to flip them up over, whatever is there, and you got to kind of go down through the bushes and pull them up over logs and whatever you got to do. And this is a drop. I mean, it's 12 feet. And so when you hook them, you've got to get them up 12 feet. And so the first one hooked him, got him up. He was a little over a pound. No big deal. Second one I lost, and I think it was as much because I was like, I just don't want this. I don't know. It wasn't big, but I was so like my mind is thinking about this. And then the one last night was right after the 4-pounder. And so I've already like all of a sudden, because I'm using a casting reel too, which is dumb. Use it so much easier with a spinning rod with all the bushes and everything and trees, low hanging trees and everything. But it's like I can't just go out there with a spinning rod. Like I've got to master the casting reel. I cannot just be a regular guy with a spinning rod. We're not built that way. So I'm out there with casting. I'm learning, and I'm getting much, much better, flipping and all these sorts of things, getting more accurate casting. But I think after I caught the 4-pounder, I was like, I gotta get back in there. I gotta go back in. And like I'm backlashing. I'm hitting trees, and then I go over and I hook this fish in that spot, and I reel him about. I start to reel him, and I'm like, he's better. Not maybe two. But all of a sudden, I just got so nervous about breaking the rod tip again, and because I've repaired the rod tip, and now I have a 6'10" rod instead of a 10 foot. But repaired it. And I'm just like, this is going to, so I ended up just like fiddling around trying to figure something out because you can't like walk him over to the bank or something. It's not, so I panicked. I ended up basically just flipping him off because it was like, I don't know what's going to
I don't want to
happen.
lose my rod here. Yeah, that's
Yeah, and so now I'm like, of course, now I'm like in my head, I'm constantly replaying this moment and like, do I climb up on the? Because it's the other thing is it's a couple feet wide the ledge, and I'm like, do I climb up on the ledge and lean the rod down and bring him up, by hand? Obviously, I got to get him by hand, and like so I'm like replaying this whole thing in my head. So yeah, that's this is why we're football coaches is just figuring this crap out.
well,
And
someday I'll catch a fish and then I'll know what you're talking about. Right now
yeah,
I'm just getting skunked every day.
it's really funny because these little kids, there's ever since the summer started, there's always these like packs of middle school kids who live in the area that go over on their bikes and they fish, during the day and stuff. And they're just fishing and they catch stuff because there's fish in there. But you know, they'll come around and be like, "I saw you catch that bass. What'd you catch it with?" I'm like, "Plastic worm." They're like, "All right." And they run off, and I'm like, "What you should have done was wait until I walked away from here and cast whatever, because it really doesn't matter that it's a plastic worm.
Right,
It
right, right.
matters that there's a fish here."
Yeah,
Like, but they're like, "All right," and then they run off and they start casting in like middle of the lake. It's like, okay,
I love it. Well, hopefully my woes will go. Hopefully we'll break open soon. We're gonna try the other lake. I think I'm gonna start going instead of 2 miles south, we'll go 5 miles north and get in a different piece of water and see if that changes things.
there you go. I wish
Power minute for the episode tonight. We're talking about umbrella run fits principle, adding to that, really building the foundation out for the defense this season. So we're getting into some of the last principles here. Talking about run fit system, how you can teach that run fit system to your entire defense in 10 minutes, and then fitting any run play without changing up your defense out of the umbrella run fits. So last week we talked about the priorities pyramid. Go back and listen to that. If you're a guy, since especially culture talk and how to build a program and all that, I think priorities pyramid is a great tool for doing that and helping kids for the rest of their lives, honestly. Next week's topic is the 90 I put 90-day practice plan, 90-minute practice plan. So yeah, no, not the 90-day,
through the whole
90-minute
season.
practice plan.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's your whole season. Real quick, guys, if these conversations help your staff this summer, please do share out the episode, bring another coach into it. We're trying to get the word out. Building a basic defense and building off the pillars, the foundations, whatever is a big piece of what we're doing this season. So help us out, share the episode. Let's pay the bills, Joe, and we'll move on with life.
Yeah, as we go into talking about the run fits system here, it's all part of your defensive system and everything that you put together. So we have a guide for putting together your ultimate defensive coaching system that is a free download. If you have not already gotten it, what have you been doing? Unless you just found out, go get that free guide. Just go to joedanielfootball.com/system. It's a quick read, lays out the kind of the key things to focus on as you put together and install your ultimate defensive system, especially as we're coming into the season and you're putting together those practice plans, the 5 mistakes that you've got to avoid when you install that new system. Check it out. Go to joedanielfootball.com/system.
Athletic speed and movement. We all know that speed wins games. Real question is, are you fast enough? Speed changes everything. It turns average plays into touchdowns and good players into game breakers. And here's the truth. Real speed isn't just natural. It's trained. At Athletic Speed Movement, we show athletes how to get faster, quicker, and more explosive using proven methods that translate directly to the field. Our system was built by Del Basquette, who's done it at the highest levels, and it works for athletes at every stop on the way down. So whether you're a coach looking to elevate your team or a parent wanting to give your athlete an edge, this is where speed starts. Go to athleticspeedmovement.com and learn how to build real speed that shows up on game day. Don't just play the game, outrun it. Still the best. All right, man, let's jump into here. Part one, question one here. We're talking about the the umbrella run fits principle. So let's talk about that run fit system. What kind of goes into that run fit system?
So I think the first thing is with a run fit system, when you talk about a defensive system, when I talk about a defensive system, it's different than what most people are talking about. So most people, and you know this, most people are going to argue about whether or not an odd front or an even front, a 4-3 or a 4-2, a 3-3 or a 5-2. That's what they're going to talk about. And everything else is secondary to that. Am I a 3-3? Am I a 5-3? Am I that is the wrong way to look at defense. The right way to look at defense is everything starts with the foundation, the principles. So, there's your coaching philosophy of Coach Simple philosophy that we talked about earlier this season. I think back in episode 1 of this season, Coach Simple philosophy. So, yeah, it's important. So, go back and listen to that. That's kind of my overall coaching philosophy. And then I have things that are important. We talk about containers principle, and we talk about ASKA and levers and all of these things. But when we talk about defense, it all starts with, can you stop the run? And it all starts with your run fits system. And every single defense should have, and in general does have, varying levels of good, but every single defense needs to be built on a run fit system. One system, one approach to stopping the run. And there are different words, and there's funnel run fits, and there's, all sorts of different stuff, box and spill, and whatever, all this sort of stuff. A lot of them, as we've talked about, end up looking a lot alike, but whatever your run fit system is, I always talk to coaches will come, who are position coaches, will come to JDFB, and they will sign up for JDFB, and they will say, I'm going to be the linebackers coach. How do I coach these linebackers? I don't know. First thing that you have to find out is you have to go to your defensive coordinator and say, what is our run fits system? Teach me our run fits system. If your defensive coordinator doesn't have anything, that's a red flag. Like, we need a run fit system. Now, for some people, the run fit system is as simple as, and a lot of people think of run fits as this, is as simple as gaps, right? Gap responsibility defense. This guy has A gap, this guy has B gap, this guy has C gap. How do we fit the run? Well, we fit A gap, we fit B gap, we fit C gap, we fit D gap. We put somebody on the outside who is the contain,
Right.
and we fit the run that way. And at its simplest, that on paper, that works. And I remember we've talked about it. I've told the story many times. Ricky Kuhn was the defensive coordinator. I was the linebackers coach at Ellsworth College. We were, I believe, going into this game ranked number 3 in the nation. We may have been lower because we did lose by 1 to Georgia Military College in week 1. So we may have been climbing back up the ranks, but we were going into a big game against Tony Anese's team at Grand Rapids Community College. And Grand Rapids was also ranked. Grand Rapids ended up, I believe, playing for the national title that year. I don't think they won it that year. We might finish 3rd. We lost that game 70, 50, 52 to 70.
Was basketball? What are we doing here?
It was bad. We were, look, we were up 21-0. And then it fell apart. There was a major flaw we tried to install at the time he was running the Muskie gun, a flex bone pistol wing T deal, I think, if I remember right. We tried to install this. Our head coach insisted on some sort of wacky run fit system for this because he was a veer option coach and an option guy. And this, in his mind, would be the best thing. And on paper, it seemed good. And in practice, it worked okay. And we didn't see the major flaw. And obviously, Tony Anese did not see the major flaw for a quarter.
Right.
And then he saw it. And the major flaw was in our 2 gapped defensive tackles and linebacker run fits. And I remember after we gave up 70, I can't remember the numbers, 72 to 56 or something like that. It was awful. Might have been 70 to 56. I think we lost by 2 touchdowns, but I could be wrong. 77-56. Anyway, Ricky has a very strong coaching network, something I've never been great at. Ricky would get in his office and gets in his office, Sunday morning and just starts calling coaches up. And they're like, what happened? Like, I think it was 77-56. I think it was 1 point. Like, we lost 77-56. Like, what happened? And he said, all these coaches just kept saying, did you fill up all the gaps? And he's like, no, we did what our head coach wanted. And that's what you're supposed to do. You do what the head coach wants. But it had a major flaw that we didn't see until a very good football team exploited it. But that was the question. Did you fill up all the gaps? And that was the run fit solution. Just fill up all the gaps. If you just do that, if they can't go A gap and they can't go B gap and they can't go C gap, then how do they beat you? And to be quite honest, with that team, we were incredibly talented. And probably if we had just put one of those talented guys in every single gap, we don't give up 77 points. And 56 might have been enough.
Right.
That's all he had to do was our offense was incredible. Offense was number 1 in the country. We actually finished, despite that, we finished ranked in top 25 in defense and ranked 9th in the country at the end of the year, despite that game. But that's a viable run fit system, is just everybody's got a gap. But there's better. There's a better system. And there's probably lots of better systems. But at the core basic, at least if they say we fill up all of the gaps, okay, that's a start. That's a system. Run fits, what your run fit system is the heart of who you are as a defense. Not 3-3, not 4-2. 3-3 and 4-2, those are just different alignments. And different guys have different assignments based on those alignments. But they are all different ways of supporting your run fit system. And the run fit system is supported by your ASKA, your alignment stance keyword assignment. And again, we did that one we did linebacker ASKA as an example, but we did that in episode 13 of this season, back in April. We laid out the ASKA. The ASKA, alignment stance keyword assignment for each position, is all built around the run fits system. It's all built around that. That's all that matters. Where they line up is based on how guys talk about, well, he should be here and he should be this. And a lot of times you'll say, why should he be there? And if you have this principle, this guiding principle, whatever yours is, and I'm going to give you one that works for many, many, many schools, whatever your principles, if you look at that asking, you go, why do we stand there? Why do we align there? And you approach it from, well, that's the position where he is most effective at doing his job in the run fits. End of discussion. Now, we can discuss how we could adjust it to make it better but once we find the optimal alignment for him to do his job within the run fits, that's his alignment. Now that, you get in a situation where they're more likely to throw the ball, it might change. You get in a position where we're on the goal line, it changes a little bit because the parameters and everything change, but all things equal, we need to stop the run above all else. And so the alignment within our defense is all based on how we support the run fits. The ASKA, where we stand, how we stand, who we look at, what we do once they tell if it's a run or a pass, is all about supporting the run fits. And obviously, if it's a pass, we carry out our pass responsibility. But that's not until we know it's not a pass. We know it's not a run, right? Now, of course, you have your stay in coverage players, and they're starting off with the assumption that it's a pass. Yeah. That's part of your run fits as well, is who is primarily pass responsible, which there should be 2 guys that are primarily pass responsible as well. So when you decide on 4-2, 3-3, 3-5, if you want to be whatever you want to call them, 4-3, 3-4, 5-2, when you decide on that, that's not about whether we have linebacker, big guys or small guys. It's a decision on how you are going to support your run fits system. That's what matters in that. And so, like, people will think that I'm a 4-2-5 guy. Well, that's because the 4-2-5 is the simplest method to supporting our run fit system. And for most coaches, And most players, the simplest in terms of, and by the way, simple again is where they're at. It's not a spot. It's not a specific thing. It's not 4-4 cover 3. It changes. That what's simple in the NFL is not simple in your youth team, but it's all still, make it simple so that they can play fast. The 4-3, the 4-2-5 is the simplest. The 4-3, the way that we teach it, the Miami 4-3, is the most complex. However, if I had the staff and the athletes to support our run fit system with the 4-3, I would absolutely do it. I don't have that, and most of our coaches don't have that. But the ones that do, that's the thing to do. You gotta have smart coaches, dedicated coaches. You gotta have a pipeline of players that can play some particularly tough positions in the 4-3, but it's a beautiful scheme. And if you've got the horses and you've got the brain power, then I'm a 4-3 guy if we get the chance, but it is the most complex way to support your run fits. 3-3 is a different manner of supporting your run fits. It is simpler than a 3-4, simpler than a 4-3, but more complex, gives more flexibility, more control to the defensive coordinator than the 4-2. So it's not as simple as the 4-2. It's a different way of supporting. There's a different method to it, but at the end of the day, it is supporting our run fit system. And the 3-4 is a more versatile, you can do more stuff out of the 3-4. You can create more looks, and it allows your players to do some different roles, but it is more complex because part of that is that multiple players have to do multiple different roles, as opposed to the 4-2 where everybody is basically doing a role. The 4-2 being the simplest. Everybody, your defensive lineman is a defensive lineman is a defensive lineman. Inside linebacker is an inside linebacker. They are spill players. A force player is a force player. An outside safety is an overhang safety, is an overhang safety, is an outside linebacker. That's what they do. That's who they are. The alley player is the free safety. He will always be. That just is. That's why the 4-2 is simpler, because nobody's jobs change. 3-3 is slightly more complex because of the slanting, and because every time that a linebacker blitzes, he essentially becomes a fourth defensive lineman. So I have to cross-train my linebackers on how to be a defensive lineman and a linebacker, basically. Even though they're blitzing from depth, they still have to react to movement more. So, and then the 3-4, again, outside linebacker can be the force one play, and then the safety rolls down and he's the force, and the outside linebacker is crashing C gap like a defensive end. So, that changes, they have multiple roles that they can fill. So, but all of that is to say, this is just about how you support your run fit system. And everything is from the lens of how am I supporting this run fit system? And by the way, it makes it much easier to be multiple front if you decide to do that. I don't recommend that for everybody for sure. But if you decide I want to show a 4-2 and a 3-3, I talk about it all the time. I love our system because in scout team, they are never running the other team's defense. They are running our run fit system from a different alignment. Yeah. And that's it. But their scout team job is spill, force, alley. It's just our defense from a different alignment. And so they're always working on the things that we do. And all of your drills, not all of your drills, because you do have pass drills, pass coverage drills, but your key read drills, your block destruct drills, your tackling drills, those are all in support of your run fit system. And your run fit system, if it's going to be the foundation of your defense in this way, then it needs to be universal. It needs to be the same for everybody and everything that you face. It needs to be flexible. It needs to be able to adjust to formation. It needs to be able to adjust to different plays. You need to be able to fit an ISO and an outside zone and a toss and all of these things and a counter, and it all needs to be baked in. That's why we talk about, guys talk about how do you fit the ISO. It's not a big a deal now because not many people line up in the eye and run the ISO, but it used to be a big deal. How do you fit the ISO? How do you fit that lead block? And everybody wants to fit it outside to turn it back to the other linebacker. I fit everything inside half. So we can't do that. But don't make the gap so freaking big and he has to bounce. If I got two bodies in the gap, he shouldn't be able to squeeze through the outside. And then we'll scrape and, it's all built in. This is our run fit system and we're going to get into it. But that is what a run fit system is about and why you need one is because it's the core. And so when like, what's your run fits? And they're like, I don't know, we're a 4-4. It's like, okay, you gotta do better than that.
The I wanted to go, but you talked about, just being gap sound is a version of this, and maybe that's, gapped out defense is what I've heard quite a bit over the last few years. Especially once I started making the claims online that, like, I don't teach linebackers gaps. You
Mhm.
don't have a gap, right? You have a key read that takes you a direction and then find ball, tackle ball kind of thing, right? We know what we're doing because of our system, the way it's built out. Is you start building out a system, you're not necessarily going to be wrong. I liked what you said, Joe. That is a way to do it, but there's a better way. And it simply comes down to everything I see is gap scheme football anyway. And so gaps are moving. They're
Right.
constantly on the move. Even if you go back to ISO, that's adding a gap, right? Once you're inserting
Hopefully
a
not,
football
but yeah.
player, yeah, once you insert a football player into B gap from the offense, he just makes a new B gap. And now there's something outside of him. So you're just constantly this adding and removing of gaps by the offense. And as a defense, if I start telling my kid, well, you're weak B gap all the time and play goes strong, and now they add gaps or pull a guard, and I've just start getting a lot of people in places they don't need to be, and not enough people in places I do need them. So, as you start thinking about your run fit system, the second thing is it has to be the foundation. I don't know in this day and age that you can go be I don't know. Somebody out there could maybe claim that they are pass defense first, but I just truly don't know, man. Everything's, it's kind of getting back into a phone booth now. Even at the NFL, we've seen that this past year or two. You watch Super Bowl from last year, and it was like everything's condensed sets, everything's running the football insides. I think this has to be the basis of your defense, wherever you're starting, whatever level. I don't care if you're, we talked to Coach Flo over in Germany, and he's in a youth ball. I bet he's got to stop the run first.
Oh,
Or
yeah.
you come over here and see the highest powered, professional, semi-professional college offenses, or I bet you still have to run the ball or stop the run first. So these run fits really do have to be the basis of your defense.
Yeah, it's the you mentioned coverage, and I think I don't think anybody, I don't say anybody, 'cause, like, you're right, there's probably somebody out there, but where the coverage argument comes into it is we talk about, just look at what we have in JDFB. Cover 3 is the simplest, easiest, and so the most supportive of our run fits is cover 3 because they have the least to think about in the pass coverage, so more of their brain power and attention can be focused on the run. That's how it supports the run game, is just that it's simple and it puts them in great positions where they can play our run fit system, but also get to their coverage areas and blah, blah, blah. So cover 3 is the most supportive, but you can't just at a high varsity level, you cannot just line up in cover 3 spot drop every single down. You can, but eventually, most likely, eventually, if you go far enough, somebody is going to take advantage of that. Just in the way that we know that there are cover 3 beaters, right? There are route concepts that are cover 3 beaters. Like if you look at our cover 3, and we're running cover 3, and you play a team that can flat out throw the curl flat concept the way that we teach it, I don't have an answer. It's a cover 3 beater for a reason. What's your answer? Well, I'm going to drive the corner down on the curl and jump the flat. Okay, well, you're going to get beat on curl wheel. You're going to get torched on it, right? So, if you're in cover 3 every single time, that will eventually run out. And so in order to support, you may be base cover 3, but then you have a secondary coverage where you're running cover 1. You may face very high level passing attacks and have the capacity, the ability of the players and the ability of the coaches to teach it, and the need from your opponents to run split field, our split field quarter system. And most coaches don't need that. They want to run it because it's cool and the colleges and the big dogs are doing it. But the amount of time that it takes compared to the amount that you're going to get out of it is not in support of your run fit system.
Right.
Now, if you face high level passing attacks and you need it, then you make that decision and you hopefully are not trying to do it with a bunch of guys who have no idea how to play football. You're doing it with a fairly veteran varsity group who's at least come up through a well-developed JV program and they're ready to do this. If I'm at some of the schools that in your area, those high level, Tulsa schools, it's like, yeah, they they're going to need to run that because they're going to face some high level passing attacks, but also they have a bunch of experienced coaches and they have very good freshman JV programs. So when they're installing this, it makes sense. I would never I would never go to a Bixby and be like, you need to just run cover 3 and cut this other crap out. That's not Coach Simple there,
Right.
right? That doesn't make sense. But and I wouldn't go to a school in Atlanta or in Dallas or in Southern California and say, here's the deal, cover 3. Now, I might do it in Miami because those kids can flat out fly, and I might just want them to just cut loose and see what happens. They have so much coach turnover down there. So you've got to look at your area and your situation. And if you are a school in Montana with 5 wing tees, 2 double wings, a dead tee, and 1 spread, but really they're spread to run, don't run split field coverage because everybody else does. Like, don't do that. And everybody else shouldn't be doing it. So when we talk about how this impacts your coverage, what coverage I run is both how does it how does it fit my players and my coaches and more importantly my opponents, but how does it support or take away from my run fits? The more complex my coverage, the less supportive it is of my run fits. That
Right.
said, we have had very good run fits in cover 1. We have had teams with excellent run fits in split field quarters because it was the right thing for them. But if you just run pattern match cover, quarters because that's the thing and you feel like you're just that cool, it's not in support of your run fits and everything needs to be in support of your run fits.
Let's jump into part 2 here, and this is I really love this one because as everyone, most of the people listening know, I'm friends with a guy that's right down the road from me here at Adair that won state championship this year. JDFB guy, has been for 7 or 8 years or whatever, and he does. And you're talking about I wouldn't go into that area and teach. I mean, obviously he's a smaller school, but he does just run spot drop cover 3 over and over and over and over and over again. It's just base defense. So I got to sit down at a 4-2-5. We got to just a little group got together to talk about the defense, and he's like, "Yeah, I teach my whole defense in 10, 20 minutes. Like, that's all it takes. I draw it up on the board, and my junior high learns it. And we go out to practice, and then we can play a game a day later. Like
Mhm.
there's nothing to it." And so I love that idea of once again, yes, the defense that he's running is simple, but the fundamentals that we've been talking about all this season, but especially this one, this run fits umbrella run fits principle, creates that world where you can install and teach it in 10 minutes. And then of course, I mean, you're gonna get the if thens and how exactly do I play and what does this
Adjustments,
left
yeah.
tackle really look like when he, you know, sets this way versus that, or if he pulls or if he kicks or whatever he's doing. Right. I mean, you're gonna have to get into the minutia as the time goes on and you face different body types and different players, different teams, different schemes. But the base is there in 10 minutes. And so that's something I really love about these super simple concepts. And it's a great place to start. Even if you want to be super advanced and you want to go do more, like you talked about, you want a coverage system that doesn't support your run fits as well. You can still start here. You can get in a base defense in your 10 minutes and move on. So Joe, let's just talk about that.
Yeah.
How are you organizing this or whatever? I mean, how are you making it so that you can go out and teach this in 10 minutes?
And there's no difference, by the way, in teaching this in 10 minutes if you're split field coverage or if you're cover 1 or if you're cover 3. There's no difference. This is all taught in 10 minutes. It doesn't change. Now, like you said, the nuance of everything is going to take more time. And then you install, your stunt package and your blitz package and your change up coverage and your change up fronts and all of that stuff. But yeah, once you get this in, you can not only go play a game, base alignment and run fits, base alignment and run fits. And we're, talking about Brady's 4.25 is really, really fast to install. 3.3 is pretty fast to install. 3.4, again, I can install the base, but then what happens when I bring the wheel backer instead of the sandbacker? That's going to take more to install. The 4.3 base, easy to install. The technique of everything, I wouldn't even say complicated, but the pattern match part is. But and there's, by the way, the reason that I talk about 4.3 a lot of times, guys, is there's no reason on God's green earth to run 4.3 cover 3 as your base. If you're not going to pattern match, if you're going to run a single high cover 1 or cover 3, you should be in a 4.2 and not a 4.3. That's it. Otherwise, you're thinking about linebackers as gap players, and you're going to get outnumbered in a 4.3. It's not going to work. Now, you may go through an entire season and you're athletic enough, and the coaches that you're playing against don't find that. That's a difference. But I can look at it and tell you, you got a broken defense here. So that's why we say that. You should be high level if you're running the Miami 4.3. Otherwise, there's no good reason. So the umbrella, so we bring the kids in, same thing, 10 minutes on the board, 10 minutes on the field. We bring them in and we draw it up on the board. And we do that because kids learn in different ways. So we draw it up on the board and we put up an I formation because everybody hates that. Nobody runs the I. I don't care. This is the easiest way to teach it. Starting off is to line up in a pro I. Tight end I always put the tight end to the defense's right. Tight end, draw them upside down. And tight end's over here on the defense's right. And I got an I formation. I got a slot receiver and I got a split receiver. And I put up my defensive lineman, my linebackers, my secondary. So we'll talk from a 4.25 standpoint because it's the easiest thing to do. Just understand that all this is the exact same in the 3.3, the exact same in the 3.3, and only changes slightly in the 3.4. When I teach this in the 3.4, I showed the 3.4 alignment. Then we slant weak and we bring the sandbacker into C gap. That's the base. That looks just like a 4.2. So that's the base. And in the 4.3, there's no alley defender. The extra linebacker is the alley defender, and you have two gapped linebackers, especially the Mike as a two gap linebacker. That's why you don't teach gap fits, because he's just fitting A gap strong, B gap weak. But it's, if B gap weak closes off, he's going to continue scraping. He's not going to force himself into B gap weak. Anyway, the 4.3 looks a little bit different, but it's all the pieces are there. So we draw it up on the board. 4 defensive linemen, 3 tech, 6 tech, or 6I or 7 or whatever you want to call it. 1 tech week, 5 tech week. Okay. Linebackers, 30 techs. This is just based. Don't worry about what all those mean. Get the 45 defense manual. We're working on the print copy right now. As soon as it's done, we're going to release it. Hopefully it's out real soon. I just paid $35 extra to get the proof copy, express mail, so that I can get it. I'm really happy about that. So, and I'll teach you all the techniques and everything and the positions and the personnel and all that. So we line that up. We draw that up on the board and we say, these guys, we draw a big parabola over the defense, over the defensive linemen and linebackers, and that's the umbrella. If you grab the stem of the umbrella, which is the I and you pick it up, it's an umbrella. Okay. I have an article on this on our homepage as well, or joedanielfootball.com. Click on articles. It'll probably be on page 2, but there's an article on umbrella, and I think it's joedanielfootball.com/umbrella, but I might not be because I checked that today. But it's there on the articles page if you want to see the visual. So that's the umbrella. And I say everybody under the umbrella is a spill defender. Spill defenders are responsible for the inside half of the gap. They fit the inside half of lead blockers and ball carriers. So I'm going to tackle his inside thigh. I'm going to rip through his inside shoulder pad. I am going to scrape paint with the outside half of the lineman in the gaps. Guys always ask who has the outside half if he has the inside half. We explained that this is conceptual. If I am in the inside half of the gap, I reach my arm out and tackle the man trying to run through the outside half of the gap. This is not that hard. How big is the gap, guys? Okay, the gap is not, and that's why we talk about the ISO. You mentioned the ISO creates another gap, only if the defensive end on the ISO side is playing like absolute trash. If he is condensing the gap and not just running up the field or getting driven out, then the gap is closed by 2 bodies being in it. The lead backer, lead blocker and the linebacker meeting in that gap. So we close off the gap. Inside half, spill players defend the inside half of the gap, attack the inside half of ball carriers and lead blockers. They force everything to spill, bounce to the outside. They let nothing go through the inside of them. So if I'm a defensive end and my guy down blocks, I just squeeze the down block. I just keep following him down because he's the inside half of the gap, right? I just keep on going with him. He pulls, I just keep squeezing on down because the gap is gone. So I keep squeezing the inside half of that gap. Then we have our overhang safeties. We tell them their alignment. They're 5x5. In this particular formation, there's no slot defenders. If you have a single receiver on your side, or if you have a pro side, you're 5x5, 5 yards off, 5 yards outside. And those are the outside linebackers, overhang safeties, dogs, birds, bats, kittens, whatever you want to call them. Doesn't matter. Okay. Ends, you can call them ends. That's fine, but just don't put them at the end because they're not in a position to force from there. Line them 5x5, call them whatever you want. I call them safeties because it makes them feel faster. You're the force defender. Your job is to force a change of direction in the ball carrier on outside runs, meaning that if they run the ball outside, you are going to either force him to turn back inside, where all of your spill defenders and your alley defender coming soon are going to be in pursuit, force him to bubble and try to run around you, which means he's only going to actually move away from the line of scrimmage and try to go around you, in which case you're giving more time for the pursuit to get there. And now basically the sideline becomes the force and you just continue to squeeze him to the sideline out there. Or if he doesn't change direction, you're going to tackle him because he's going to run at you. Okay, that's it. That's the three things. He's either going to go back inside, he's going to try to go around you, or he's not going to change direction and you're going to make a tackle. If he doesn't change direction and you don't tackle him, then you did not do your job because you did not force a change of direction. Simple as that. He is responsible for the outside half. By the way, all of your option fits are included in this. All of your option fits are natural off of this, but we get into that later. But all the option fits are natural. He's the pitch defender on the option because that's the outside threat. So that's where he's 5x5, and then we go into teaching the drills and all that sort of stuff as key reads on the run. But he is the force. Most important player in the defense. Don't care which defense. Most important player in the defense is the free safety, because if you have great spill and nobody ever gets to run in an inside gap, and you have great force and nobody ever gets outside, but there's a seam between the fill and the force, the spill and the force. If that seam is there, it's a bad play. If your free safety, who is the alley defender is responsible for tying the spill to the force. That's where the alley is, not halfway between the hash and the numbers or some other spot on the field. Wherever your last spill defender is, wherever your force defender is. So whether it's defensive end is the last spill defender, or a scraping linebacker has fit outside of the defensive end based on his key read. Okay, whatever it is, whoever the last spill is, the free safety fits off of him inside of the force. He closes the alley. A great free safety can get down and the alley can be 5 yards wide and he can make an open field tackle for no gain. A bad free safety, the alley can be a crack of daylight and the bad free safety is still back 8 yards deep. And a good running back squeaks through that daylight and gains 8 yards, even if that free safety makes the tackle. And if he's really bad, he misses the tackle. Or if you make the mistake of having your free safety be the deep safety, the last line of defense. Safety, the term for safety, that goes back to cover 2, where the safeties were the deep half players. Almost nobody is running spot cover 2 anymore. So it's an antiquated term now. We still use it. Call them birds and bats and dogs if you want to, if you don't want to use that term safety. But the safeties are not the last line of defense. That's the corners in most of our defenses. That's the corners. Now, if you run a base cover 2, or if you run split field and you make a black check or a cloud check, that's different. But in most of our base coverages, most of the things that coaches are doing today, the corners are the deep half defenders. And so teach the alley defender, most important player, he ties the spills to the force. And then lastly, the corners. The corners are 7 yards off, 2 yards inside in our base cover 3, because they know that the free safety is a run heavy player. They are playing deep third, but in cover three, and in deep quarter in quarters, but or deep half depending on the call. But they are to stay in coverage defenders. So as our other 9 are really run first players, our corners are there for, even though we teach them how to read play actions and everything, they're there for the play action, the bad read on the play action, but also more so they're there for the toss pass, the double pass, the trick plays. They are the stay in coverage defender back there, and they are always assuming run or always assuming pass, and they don't come up to defend the run until the ball has crossed the line of scrimmage. And I will teach them not to do it until the ball is 5 yards across the line of scrimmage, so they lost games on it. But that's the defense. So at that point, the defense is done. Okay, spill, force, alley, stay in coverage. Everybody was there. Everybody heard it. Everybody knows what their role is in the defense. If somebody gets hurt and I need my best 11 on the field and my next best guy is a safety, but I need him to play linebacker, you're not spill anymore. You're not force anymore. You're spill. Inside half of the gap. Okay, that's your job. And guys can pick up on that and they can do it. I mentioned that I got a scrimmage one time and they told me, oh, yeah, they run a wing T. And I was like, cool. We got there and they were a powerhouse double wing. Powerhouse double wing. I could not go out there with a base 4.25. We hadn't installed our double wing stuff yet. It was a scrimmage. So I took 2 backup defensive ends. And also I didn't want, my quarterback was like the next safety and that kind of stuff. And we're not doing that. So I took 2 backup defensive ends and I said, okay, you're force. And I put them in at the outside linebacker spot. And that was it. That was the adjustment. By the way, they were a powerhouse. And so we didn't it's not like we shut them down,
Right.
but we hung in there and survived the scrimmage. And the kids knew what to do and they did the job. So you do that 10 minutes on the board. If you think all of your kids have learned it, you are new to kids. We now take them, we immediately go out to the field, we do the exact same thing on the field and go through it. And we use trash cans, not people. So you don't have 5 guys on a knee. Everybody is out there on the defense, right? Everybody's out there. They're standing their positions and they're learning what to do so that they're not just back there. You guys stand back there in the back. Make sure you're listening. They're not.
Nope.
Get them out on the field. You can have 2 guys standing at safety, 3 guys standing at overhang safety. Get them out there so that they're all in front of you and listening. And if you got more than if you got more than 2 deep, then I would have 2 installs going on or something, but you go on the field and you do the same install for 10 minutes. You've installed the big picture. Now you go to your defensive individuals and you start working and obviously you do tackling and you work your block to struck, but you go to defensive individuals and you start working your stance and by the way, you've installed alignment now, because you went out on the field and you did that. Now you go into your defensive individuals and you start teaching them the stance and you start working on your key read drills and how to carry out your assignment and your techniques. And that's all in support. So understand the base install was the umbrella. And now all of my drill work that I'm doing is in support of the umbrella.
The ability to get through that stuff, we're talking about installing it in 10 minutes. And look, we understand you're going to install this 3 or 4 times, before.
Well, and now it's the thing. This
happens.
is now the thing that you are doing for the next 16 weeks.
Yes.
This is it. This is it.
That's why we don't quit practicing after week 1, right? You still got to go to football practice. Still got to get better at your system. So if you guys are going, Joe, it almost took you 10 minutes to talk through that. You're right. But we have to draw a picture
That's
for
the
you
exact
in
install.
words.
Like I just gave you the install. That's it, word for word.
You now have the Joe Daniel football.
The only thing that I did was explain to you what I'm teaching to them, which added a couple minutes.
Yeah, for sure. But it truly is that simple. And the beauty of it is it will go out and stop almost anything. You talked about, you go see a double wing team. There's some teams out there, some offenses that you just need a different front.
Double wing adds a different gap, but it is still
the base is still there. I can take a kid who's if I need to sub out, you're a spill player. I don't have to explain from a 1 tech to a 3 tech to a 5 tech. You're a spill player. I'm changing your alignment, and you go out and you do spill. That's all. You already know what that means. You're reading the offensive lineman the same, whether you're running heel line or you're getting in his hip, whatever. You're spilling. You're inside half first, and you go. Your Mike can run over and play Will. Your Sam can transition in, and now he's just, hey, you're a spill player. Okay. Outside backers, safeties, what they become interchangeable, right? Look, you know what it means to force. So now you're just playing just inside of that. Now we're calling you the alley. Okay. It's just, it becomes so interchangeable and so quick to teach. That's what I love about it. But that takes us into our third point here, Joe, which is the ability to play any run play without changing your defense, which is what makes it even better because it doesn't matter what scheme the offense wants to run. It doesn't matter what if they went through a gap scheme, a zone scheme. None of that matters to you because your kids are doing the exact same thing. They have a few key reads that changes their angles, it changes where they're headed, but they know when they get there, the fundamentals haven't changed. Like you said earlier, linebacker, I'm inside half the gap. Okay, I'm spilling it outside. That's all I need to know. Look, if they want to run a double team in front of me and then they run zone, cool. I'm going to take the inside half of my gap where my key read takes me. Okay, whether that's if he pulls, follow, if he doesn't fill, which is what you should be teaching. But if you want to teach us something else, that's fine. Okay, key reads can change for here and there. We've talked about that in ASKA. But your key read takes you to a location and you do the same thing over and over and over again. Doesn't matter what play they're trying to run. You become less susceptible to things like play action because you're not just diving through some gap, right? You've been taught to play this thing in a certain way. Anyway, so I think even the ability for it to be so easy to teach makes it where you can, if something does need to be altered, alignment, if you do need to change key reads, whatever it is, because of their assignment not changing, because it is so simple. You're a spill player, you're a force player, you're an alley player. It allows you to play over the top of all these different run schemes. No matter if it's A gap power out to, they want to run pin and pull out in D gap. That's fine. I've got all of those covered because my kids all know they're doing the exact same thing. I'm going to spill the force it back inside, and Allie's going to clean it up.
Yeah, the idea of defending any run play, everything in this system, and by the way, I should mention, I didn't mention at the beginning, I totally stole this from TCU, which I've said a million times. So if it's your first time listening to the podcast, you might not know that. Totally stolen from Gary Patterson, TCU defense, from the the one that led the country in defense for 5 different seasons in the 20 aughts, 2000 to 2010. Just fantastic defense, which evolved over time and looked very different in 1999 than it did in 2009. Very different. The thing about these run fits is not only I tell the story the second year that we were doing this. The first year we did not see any real option teams. We saw a little bit of zone read and that type of thing, but no real good option teams. Nothing where we were really preparing game planning specifically for option. If somebody dabbles in option, I really don't care because they're more likely to flip the ball on the ground than they are to actually beat us with the pitch.
Right.
But we went out and we lined up in our 4-2. And again, this was a group that, they had either run this defense on JV or varsity the previous year, pretty much the defense that we had out there. And we had been through our install, our 5-day install plan, and we had been through a scrimmage or two at that point, and we started to get, I think we'd been through one scrimmage. We still had another scrimmage coming, but we were not going to be game planning for the second scrimmage. We were going to invest that week in our week 1 opponent, as we talked about your week 1 opponent in 2 weeks ago, I think, on the podcast, and how you game plan for that. So go listen to that one. We go out and we are going to be playing week 1, a team that is running flexbone, pistol flexbone, not exactly Muskegon, but they're going to be running triple option out of a flexbone pistol look. And so we are teaching them and we had seen their first scrimmage. So we go out and I'm doing what I have always done for the first few years as a defensive coordinator. And I am teaching them. We line up the defense and we walk through the base plays and teach them our run fits. This is how we are going to fit this play. This is how we are going to fit this play. I was still doing that because I hadn't fully understood this system yet. You have to sit with a system for a while, especially when I kind of stole it from Gary Patterson. I didn't go down and meet Gary Patterson, have him teach it to me. I pieced it together from different resources. So I'm doing the old school thing. That's the way every defensive week I'd ever been a part of it. Done in high school, we had done that, and youth ball, we had done that. I mean, it's
So that's how
all
we had to win the chalkboard, right? Like, that's where it
yes.
kinda started from.
So we're showing the players how they are going to defend each run play. Now remember, our system can defend every run play, and it's natural if they do the things that we teach in our drills in support of the run fit system. I don't have to teach you how to defend a wing tee, and I don't have to teach you how to defend. But this is where I realized it. We are playing a pistol flexbone option for the first time in this system, and we're lined up in a 4-2. And I I have the offense basically take their first 2 steps. They've got a little card back there. Some poor JV coach is having to get these guys to walk through the lines on the card. It's miserable. I hate it. So I use the wristbands. So I take the first 2 steps, and I'm like, all right. They've like walked into the mesh. And I'm like, okay, what are we doing here? Defensive end, what are we doing? And he's like, he's got that veer release. So he's like, I got to block away. He calls it a down block because that's all he knows. He doesn't know what a veer release is. Because he's down blocking. What are you going to do? I'm going to bend. We call it bend. We bend and train wreck. I'm going to bend down the line of scrimmage. Okay. Who are you going to tackle? The dive, or run right into the dive back. Okay. You're a dive player. Mike linebacker, who is going to be I believe, a senior, and he's a 3-year starter. So he understood this stuff because this is where it can get confusing. Okay. What are you going to do? By the way, there was no tight end. We were going to be in an indie front and that kind of stuff. He goes, well, A gap's closed and he's coming down the line of scrimmage. So B gap's closed. So I'm going to end up out there. Okay. What do you have? Like inside half of the quarterback. That's it. All right. Who's got the pitch? Safety standing out there. He's like, he's the outside guy.
Well, one guy left.
I got him. Force change direction. I got the pitch. And okay. Now, if the linebacker is on the inside half of the quarterback and the force defender is responsible for the outside half of the pitch, what's the alley? Outside half of the quarterback to inside half of the pitch. Who's responsible for that? Free safety. We just fit the option. I never did that again because at that point you realize it is all natural. And then they would see things and we would go to play. And again, this was my second year running this system. So I was getting a better grasp of it. We would go play, 2 weeks later, we go play a zone read team. And we go, we're looking at it on the board. We're looking at it on film because I stopped doing the thing where we're lined up on the field, but we would always watch film on Monday of, clips of the team that we're playing. And it's like, all right, they started to understand that zone read is just triple option. Dive is the zone, quarterback. And then if you have a pitch element or a bubble element, that's the outside. It's just, it stops being this complex play and it becomes just another version of the thing that we stopped in week 1. And by the way, I will end the story by telling we had a good week of practice. We always struggled with triple option. We would always do things like no ball, or we would call dive, quarterback, or pitch because we're not being a triple option team. It's really hard to
You can't
execute.
practice it as well. Right.
Yeah, it's really difficult. So we weren't exactly sure what this was going to look like. And we went out in that game and we go out and we line up in our 4-2 and they line up in the pistol flex bone and they go down the field and they score on the first possession. And it wasn't like we didn't bust anything, but we weren't fitting it. And I get both my linebackers were undersized. One was about like 180 and the other one was like maybe 190, but they were strong, but they were, a little pudgy. But they were really good linebackers. They were tough kids. They were both, 5'8", 5'9", something like that. They're good kids, tough kids. And I got them, but they didn't play any offense. It was a bigger school. And so I got them over on the sidelines and I'm like, what happened out there? And I've seen him as an adult and told him the story. He has no recollection of it. he comes, Kyle, what's happening out there? He's like, Coach, he's excited. It's exactly what you showed us. Cool. They just walked down the field and scored, buddy. Like, he's like, we didn't believe you, but we got it now. Okay.
Thanks for
And
spotting them six to
if you
believe.
knew this kid, you're like, okay, like every word of this makes sense to me. It's one of those kids like this only makes sense if you know the kid. But I'm like, all of a sudden, I'm like, okay, we shut them out the rest of the game. We win the game 14-7. But they had to see it once to be like, oh, okay, and trust it, But again, we go and we play a single wing. Well, the base adjustment for the single wing, for unbalanced single wing, is slide everybody one man over, and then the run fits are the run fits. If you play with our reads, if you play an inside zone, then everybody just ends up fitting a gap because there's no pull fill, and so we take away the front side gaps and we take away the cutback gaps, and everything's taken away. It makes sense. But then when we play but then how do you do the same thing if everybody's just playing a gap, like you said, and now all of a sudden they run power? Well, the tight end blocks down and he's taking away the gap is moving. And so as a defensive end, I'm trying to squeeze the inside half of C gap. And so I'm just squeezing that tight end down because he's trying to get inside of me and I'm trying to get to the inside half of the gap because of my alignment. And I just squeeze him down. And the linebacker on the backside gets a pull. And his read is pull, follow. If he pulls, follow it because his gap has left. B gap isn't there. Again, we don't teach gap responsibility, but if you want to be technical, he's B gap responsible at the start of the play. Well, when the guard pulls, B gap goes with him, and we're left with A gap and C gap. So why would the linebacker stay there? Because, like you said, he's going to pull and potentially create a new gap. And so I have to go with him, and I fit the first open door. And the first open door that I see is the A gap, and it's such a fast read that I beat the Mike linebacker to the open A gap, which is technically his gap. If I taught that key read and taught gap responsibility to the Mike, they would both be an A gap. But because our ASKA is going to support our umbrella, the will goes to fit the A gap on an immediate inside pull read. He closes off the A gap. The Mike, who got a no pull read, stepped down. The will fills A gap. Now the double team has to come off of our 3-tech, our best defensive lineman. He's now in a one-on-one game, which he can win. Not always, but he got a better chance. A gap filled, B gap filled. Defensive end is squeezing down through C gap. Mike linebacker's natural fit is off the hip of the defensive end, extending the spill, extending the edge, and he fits it. And he makes the tackle on that strong side power. If he doesn't make the tackle, it's because the back decided to widen out, and now I've got alley and force.
Yep.
Okay. And it all fits together. So option fits, base zone fits, gap scheme fits, counter gets fit the same way that power does. These are all, if you break this down, when you break this all down, there's very few plays. I think we sat down and broke it down, and it's essentially like 7 plays, but even less than that. Gap schemes are gap. You've got a trap play, which is going to kick out your inside defensive lineman, your 3-tech usually. Okay, that's one type of play. I've got zone plays, I've got wedge, I've got power and counter and buck, and all of those things are one play family. One guy is, everybody's down blocking, one guy's kicking out, one guy's wrapping, right? It's all one play, it's all one family. There's an ISO, there's a toss. There's not a lot out there. Right. Inside run play, outside run play, off tackle run play, counter. Like that's what we're defending too. That's what it comes down to. There's not that much out there in the world. Power read combines the two, right? I've got a gap scheme and an option, and it's natural. The run fits are natural. We're squeezing down blocks, we're following the puller, everything's natural. So these plays that cause a lot of confusion, a lot of issue, they're easy to fit. And by the way, our run fits also support defending RPOs, because the guys who are going to get RPO'd the most are having a patient key read because we've aligned them in a position where they can be patient. And so they essentially give the quarterback a give read every single time and then go fit their run because of distance from the ball. So all of this, We can defend any run play with this umbrella run fit system. It is universal. It does not change. You mentioned our double wing defense. Well, double wing adds a 10th gap. You would think that that's a problem. All we do is we add an extra defender under the umbrella. We take the alley defender and drop him down under the umbrella. Now, again, when you do that, somebody under the umbrella becomes your spill. And so that gives you the numbers. Under the umbrella, we line up in essentially a 5-2 front that we got from Rick Stewart, who's friends with Tim Murphy. Asked Tim Murphy what stops the double wing. Tim Murphy, big time double wing guy, guru, and he told us how to stop it, and it works. But when we install that, the alignment changes into this 5-2 look, but we have spill, force, stay in coverage. Nobody is technically an alley defender because alley is actually a dual spill read. So nobody's technically the outside linebackers become the extra linebackers become the next guy. And we defend the double wing that way. So everything, and we have adapted this to 8-man, 9-man. I adapted this to 5-man, believe it or not. There's 5-man. It's in the Europes, but had somebody send me film of it. And I was like, yeah, we can do that.
We can do that. The number of weird counts is still.
Yeah, you would think it's flag, right? No, it's not flag.
Right.
It's not flag.
People just trying to play football with whoever they got, man.
I got 10 guys. We're going to have a game.
That's right. 5-on-5. Yeah. Like you said, even there's only so many run plays. And so once you go out and you realize that, you can kind of teach your kids the concepts, which then goes back to installing this in 10 minutes. Look, there's only so many things you can see. Your key reads become the support of this. All that guy can do is pull or not pull. Like that's at the end of the day, that's all you truly need to see, right? Your key reads support your system. Your spill guys are just spilling, kicking it out to a guy who's turning it back in. If you're kicking out to a guy who's turning it back in and there's someone there to zip it up, guys, there's not a lot of plays that you can't go make a play on. So, like you said, Joe, I don't care if you're running buck or pin pull or counter or power, even whams and traps and all, it's the same thing. It's all the same play, right? Yes, we use them as tools to pick apart different defenses, thinking offensive minded, but the defense, this very, very simple fundamental of the 4-2 or not the 4-2-5, but the Joe Daniel football system, it just plays them all. So, you'll have get with your kids that week and practice and they see how does it fit this concept this week. But it's still, you don't have to go out and change your defense from week to week.
And if you are wondering if you missed it and you're thinking like, yes, he can do something other than pull or fill or pull or not pull. He can hi-hat. Go listen to episode 13 from this season on the linebacker ASKA. We take care of it. It's all addressed. We're not new to football and missed something like that. Okay. I promise you.
Yes. Yeah. All right, man. I think that's it. I think we checked all the boxes for today. Guys, remember that, we understand that summer football isn't glamorous for you guys. It's just consistency and culture and showing up. Nobody out there watching just yet, but programs that are buying in now. And that means you as coaches, that means you as a staff are finding a way to continue educating yourself now, getting a base defense built on fundamentals. Do that now. Those are the teams that generally rise to the top later. So yeah, you want your kids in the weight room. You want them coming and getting their conditioning. You're going to do your 7-on-7, all that chaos, but just make sure your coaches are taking care of that too. Make sure you're doing something for them. This podcast is a great way to start chipping away at that. Whether it's the culture talk, the X's and O's talk, the install, the practice schedule. We'll talk next week about 90-minute practice plan. You can keep your guys fundamentally sound with something as simple as a podcast you listen to on the way to and from work, whatever it is. This week, we talked about the umbrella run fits principle. Talk about how what the run fit system is, teaching run fits to your entire defense in 10 minutes, and then fitting any run play without changing up your defense from week to week. Last week, talked about priorities pyramid. Next week, like I said, is on to 90-day practice. 90-day. I copy pasted 90-minute practice plan. Jesus. We took a little break. All right. Joe was out of town. It was 10 days. My brain doesn't work. We're moving on to level ups. Joe, let's hear your level up, good sir.
The reason we are off is because I was in Chicago for my strategic coach, Dan Sullivan business thing. It's great to do it every quarter. It's absolutely, if anybody is in business, if you're an entrepreneur, where there's lots of wealth management, financial management, insurance, all sorts of stuff there as well. But if you're an entrepreneur, I highly, highly, highly recommend checking out. It's just like anything else. You don't have to dive into the full strategic coach program. Dan Sullivan's books, Who Not How, which is behind me there, Gap in the Game. These are also great for football coaches. But Dan has multiple podcasts that he appears on and those kinds of things as well. So you can get pretty deep into the universe before you have to pay any money. But I go out and go to Chicago once a quarter for this. I always come back with great ideas. I always come back with new ways of looking at things. But I had at lunch, one of the girls in the group she's from Belarus, highly energetic, extremely smart, but like just we were talking about coaching and the difference between these are shocking things that you learn about people. She was a like national level ping pong player for Belarus. I think she said she played volleyball and her daughter played like volleyball professionally, collegiate professional.
Right.
And she was talking about the difference in coaching in Belarus, where the coaches this isn't actually my level up, it's just how I got to it, but I think it's a fun story, a fun thing to think about. She was talking about seeing her daughter's volleyball coach just like blow up and berate these girls and scream and yell at them like a football coach would, like I've done. And she was talking about that, and I've realized that doesn't have. It was one of those things that I did it for 20 years, and even though I've realized it doesn't work, and it does work for some guys. Some guys are motivated by it, but it's still almost like a habit that has to be broken. And I try to do it less, but it's also just not good for your own personal health. But she was saying, in Belarus, no one would coach you that way. They would not yell at you. They would not do any of that. They would just tell you, you sucked today. Is that if you can't do better than that, you won't play. And that is the end of obviously, then they will coach you on that, on the skill. They're going to coach you as well, but they're not going to yell at you. There's an assumption that that there is a job that has to get done and you want to get the job done. And either you can or you can't. And if you can't, you won't get the opportunity anymore.
Right.
And that's it. End of coaching. And there's no concern she said, because we're talking about this from a weightlifting standpoint, obviously Belarus and the United States, weightlifting is, a big sport, but like very different, the behavior of the athletes and the way that they act when things go good and bad. And this is a US thing, but I was, mentioned some things about that. And she was like, mental health is important. That is not a consideration in coaching in Belarus. It's not. And she's like, not saying it's good or bad, but there probably should be more. This is her opinion. There probably should be more of what they do in Belarus coaching than the screaming and the yelling, at the very least. So it was just an interesting approach to things. And obviously, as she mentioned as well, you can't do that here.
Right.
You can't just look at your, and certainly, at a youth level and even up to a high school level, you can't just, but I could do it. I guarantee you can do it in the SEC, right? You fix it or you're not going to play. Like, that's it. Like, I'm going to give you all the tools to fix it, or there's a 5-star behind you. Georgia, Alabama, Texas, they've all got another 5-star or 4-star behind them. Oklahoma doesn't.
Thank you. Me off the list and then throw shade. Oh,
in softball and baseball, they've got it. They got another one, but
let's go. Baseball.
I'm concerned that everybody is picking Georgia right now.
Yeah, Georgia's there too, huh?
Oh yeah.
Look at you, man. We just can't get away from it.
So yeah, like anyway, the end of this story is when I level up. So I'm gonna get. She talked about a book called, holy cow, I knew I was going to forget it. She was talking about this book, and it's called, I don't know why I cannot, Outlive by Peter Attia, Outlive. The Science and Art of Longevity. And she was like, she runs a business. She runs, I think, coffee shops up in Maine. And she's like, I have my executive team and we have certain things that are required. And she, recommends that they all read this book. And if they don't read this book, then it comes off of their performance evaluation, because if you don't read this book, then you clearly do not care about being the best that you can be, right? So you have automatically failed. And it's a lengthy book. And I had the audio, and of course I'm like, she's talking about it, and I'm like, heard of that? So I like pull out my Audible and look at it. I'm like, yeah, I listened to like the first 2 chapters and I bounced off of it. It's a lot of medical about, I just bounced off of it. So she's like, she's very straightforward. You can understand at this point that this she grew up in Belarus, and she's just like, well, you need to go back. And I'm like, okay. So I am about halfway through now. I am into, so it's basically about the essentially the 4 horsemen of death, I think is what they, so diabetes, cardiovascular, cancer, and Alzheimer's. And talking about centenarians and how centenarians, people in their 100s, and I think super centenarians are people in the 105 to 10, over 105, and how these people, some of them through just sheer genetics, the luck of genetics, like they're, some of them are this is all true, but they have smoked and drank every day of that 105 years. So some of them are just through genetics. But if you don't have those genetics, it's about how can you still get that result or closer to it. And it is how to prevent those diseases and things, because those people that are 105, they have managed to avoid, all of these bad things. Like,
Right.
people aren't walking around with type 2 diabetes at 107. And we're talking about people who have a high quality of life. And so these people, somebody who is 100 often has, when they reach that point in life, they often have a quality of life equivalent to, or level of health, whatever you want to call it, equivalent to the average person at 70. They are getting 1, 2, 3 extra decades of healthy, not just life. And one of the things in the book calls it medicine 2.0. Medicine 2.0 is about extending life, and often at not quality life. So you go through some very, my dad is improving, but he's been through chemo for throat cancer, and like the quality of life the last 6 months has not been great.
Right.
Right. And he's recovering, but like how, certainly would have been in better last 6 months if he was able to avoid that altogether. So, living with type 2 diabetes, those types of things, like that's not quality of life that we're looking for. So it's interesting. It hasn't gotten into these are the things to do yet, but there's, I'm sure that there's some things coming, but it is very, very interesting and gets you thinking about like not just, living longer. And I have a lot of friends who are like, I have a make 80. That's cool. And like, I'm not that way. I'm shooting for 124 because the oldest person, as far as I know, when I set that number, it was 123, and I want to win. But I don't want to be, and their response is always, oh my, and realistically, am I going to live to 124? Probably not. But if I do, the response of most people is like, do you really want to be that old? And I'm like, well, if I can be that old, but have the quality of life, yeah.
Then
Do
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to live an extra 10 years, 20 years, 30 years at a high quality of life? Yes. Do I want to spend 20 years as as an invalid, as a shut-in, as with hospice care, or no. But if I can live a high quality of life, yeah. Yeah, I want to outlive all of you guys. 'Cause you're not that great. I'll meet new people. I'll start over. It's okay. Not talking about you specifically. Talking about my friends. I don't need that. You're younger. You might be around.
Oh
They're
god,
all
and
old
not if
like
I don't
me.
get in the weight room and do something about myself, so.
I haven't gotten to that
Uh,
part yet. Hopefully he's not like, here's the thing you need to do. You need to never lift anything overhead. And I'll be like, well,
shit.
dead.
Gonna make it. My
Sorry, that was
level
a
up
long
is
level up. I apologize.
no, that's okay, it's okay, it's what we're here for. My level up, I'll keep it a little bit shorter. As we're recording this, the World Cup matches start today,
Well, they
tonight.
started yesterday, but in about 4.5 hours we start. We play at 9,
That's what
8,
it is. There
8
was one
Central.
at today at 2 o'clock, right? I think, and then I don't know what was yesterday.
Yeah,
College World
today
Series started today, so maybe that's what I'm thinking of.
yeah, College World
There
Series is
is
today.
there is a group, or I say a group. There are multiple individuals who have come over from Europe. The two that I've seen the most of are Germans, obviously because our connection to Germany. It kind of ran home for me, but it was good. But there are these individual Europeans that have come over for the World Cup to watch them at all these different places, and they are traveling across America and visually seeing what we see every day as the average American. Joe and I don't ever get political. We try our hardest not to. We're not out here like yelling and screaming about one wing of the bird or the other. We're pretty normal people. I'm not normal at all, but in the grand scheme, we're very normal people. From the outside looking in, and I know this because I taught the class for Flo and talked to his German class, and all of the questions were very political. All, what do you think about your president? What do you think about how this is going and that's going? So what I know that we are perceived from the outside is from the two extreme sides.
Yeah.
It's there is no middle ground. And so it has been such a relief to watch these Europeans come over and they are discovering real America.
Yeah, you
One of
just walk
them
around talking about politics, yeah.
one of them is
Fighting.
his Twitter, it's all on Twitter, X or whatever, but he's Freddie. And Freddie, I believe, landed in Florida and is headed to Houston and has gone across Georgia and Alabama, Mississippi. Like he's kind of cruised. He
Oh,
got through New Orleans yesterday, I think.
he's
But
gonna have
he's
more states
seeing
than I have.
things for the first time, like Bucky's, and he's like, "Holy crap! This is a gas station. Like, what is going on?" Right? He saw Bass Pro Shop, so he gets to walk in, and there's 400 rifles on the wall, and he's just like, "What?"
Don't stay long.
And right, because it'll suck
'Cause
you in, dude. This is
yeah,
freedom.
car just keeps
Um,
driving back there.
but watching and like I said, there's multiple guys. There's a Danish dude that's doing it. There's multiple guys that are going through different states and different realms that are the United States, and it's refreshing. It's a breath of fresh air at a time when we feel politically the most divided we ever have in history. Like people in my family are talking Civil War, and people in my military groups are like, what side of this are we supposed to be on, right? Because we're supposed to represent the government, which is supposed to be neutral, and there's all this the California's in the middle of elections right now that seem to be going haywire, and like there's just so much craziness. But to see these guys come in and it's like, oh yeah, we really do just like to drink cold beer and eat steak and barbecue. Some guys are finding Texas barbecue and like trying to compare it now to like Memphis barbecue and Kansas City barbecue and like which one's the best. We can't answer that question. So how are you going to come over from Europe and answer that question?
They're all good.
But it's just really, really nice to get back to like that's what America is. That's really what we are, is this sense of community. We're all pretty nice. We'll all invite you over, give you the shirt. I say all, most will give you the shirt off our back. We're gonna feed you until you can't walk. Like, and I think about my grandparents and what you never go to grandma's house without you never leave there with hungry for sure. She's gonna feed you. But I've loved it. There's just so much negativity that hits the airwaves, and that's all they see. And I'm sure it's the same for us, right? When you look over it right now, it's all immigration and murders and all this crap. And like, I know what we see isn't exactly what's going on, but it sure puts a highlighter on it. And so I love that they're seeing real America. So that's kind of my level up, is like, take a breath, smell the roses, crack a cold beer, enjoy like America. We're not that far off from each other. All of us are pretty just average, and I
Yeah,
love it. And it's good to see that being highlighted right now. And people are sharing it like crazy, which just makes it even better because now
yeah.
we all are realizing that we're all realizing like, oh yeah, we are that's us. That's more us than anything that's been put on the airwaves in 20 years. So I love it. And that's my level up. It's just
Yeah,
the Europeans have come over and discovered that we're amazing, and it reminds us that we're amazing. So
that's cool. It's good to know that there's actually a purpose for Twitter
yeah,
or X or whatever. Yeah, but
USA
on the day Elon became a trillionaire,
on
we
the
get to talk
day.
about the greatness of X.
That's right. That's
Yes,
right. Trillionaire. Mr. SpaceX
Probably
slash.
not a trillionaire anymore by the time this episode comes out.
He's either
Rocket
exponentially
crashed.
grown or he's lost.
Rocket blew up, and now it's like, well, never mind.
I bought SpaceX. I gave him a couple shares, so it's good.
I don't know.
All right, man. That's it. Real quick, let's pay the bills and get out of here.
All right. Yeah, if we've been talking about the run fit system and how it's the basis of your defense. You want to build your ultimate defensive system. Run fits is a key part of it. But I have a guide on putting together your ultimate defensive system. It talks about some of the things that you must do. And more importantly, as you get into the install for the fall here, the 5 mistakes that you must avoid when installing your new defensive system. It's a free download. If you haven't gotten it yet, it's a short manual. Take you about a half hour to read through it, but extremely valuable for you. Go get it. Go to joedanielfootball.com/system, or just go to joedanielfootball.com and it'll be right there on the homepage. Download that. And even if you have a system, you want to make sure that you got all the pieces, that you're not missing anything as you get ready to do your install for 2026. The other thing I'll mention real quick is that this comes out will be a couple days past, but the recording will still be there as long as you join during the month of June. We are starting our Coach's Edge workshops. So every month at JDFB, we do a number of new things for JDFB coaching systems clients. We have our Talk Q&A calls where I answer questions and get on a Zoom call with our coaches and answer questions, share ideas, solve problems there through a live Zoom call. We also do our JDFB film room masterclasses where every single month we break down a collection of clips, 40, 50 clips on a specific topic, which this past month was on squeezing down blocks. This coming up month is going to be on the deep out, which is a concept very few people are throwing, but you should throw more. We'll be breaking down the deep out concept. And then, in fact, all of the film that I have of the deep out, with only a handful of exceptions, was from my teams. So you should be running it. So if you're running pistol power offense or just looking for a new concept that might be fun to look at. So we do those every single month. And then also, we are now adding the Coach's Edge workshops where we're going to look at what coaches should be doing right now. And we're going to go in a kind of step-by-step workshop. We're going to build that for you, take you through the process of building it. We'll be doing them live. Like I said, we've already done the live for this month for June, and it is on putting together your install plan. So if you are looking for a workshop to put together your install plan for 2026, get in JDFB Premium Coaching Systems at joedanielfootball.com/membership. Do it before the end of June so that you don't miss out on that. And actually, I think our Platinum clients will definitely have access to all of them. But joedanielfootball.com/membership. Those Coach's Edge workshops are coming soon. We're also going to be having something else coming real soon on that. It might be out by the time this is out, but coming soon. So, yeah, lots of new stuff happening at JDFB. Those Coach's Edge workshops for sure.
There we go. Social media wise, I'm at Coach Timbo OK on Twitter/X. Over in Elon land, you can email me at chamberlainfootballconsulting@gmail.com. When is Elon going to give us an email server? That's what I'm talking about. chamberlainfootballconsulting@elon.com. I'm in for it. Anyway, Joe, where are you at, bud?
I will not be using that. I paid a lot of money for my emails. JoeDaniel.com was not cheap. JoeDanielFootball.com was. I am not on social media, but you can email me, Joe, at JoeDanielFootball.com. Of course, we have JDFB in the chalkboard forum. But if you have questions, anything, JoeDanielFootball.com, Joe at JoeDanielFootball.com when the emails come in there.
Love it. Podcast at the FBCP. If this is your first time listening to Football Coaching Podcast, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. Find us on your favorite podcatcher, especially Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Those tend to be the biggest two. If you're listening for a while, please do leave us a review. And it doesn't matter where you're listening. Reviews help everywhere. Thank you for listening to this episode of the Football Coaching Podcast. And remember, coach simple, play fast, win.